Good morning. Thank you for joining me today. This morning we'll be in Leviticus chapter 16, verse 29, through chapter 18, verse 30. This is to be a perpetual statute for you. In the 7th month, on the 10th day of the month, you must humble yourselves and do no work of any kind, both the native citizen and the foreigner who resides in your midst. For on this day atonement is to be made for you to cleanse you from all your sins. You must be clean before the Lord. It is to be a Sabbath complete rest for you, and you must humble yourselves. It is a perpetual statute. The priest who is anointed and ordained to act as high priest in place of his father is to make atonement. He is to put on linen garments, the holy garments, and he is to purify the most holy place. He is to purify the meeting tent and the altar, and he is to make atonement for the priests and for all the people of the assembly. This is to be a perpetual statute for you to make atonement for the Israelites for all their sins once a year. So he did just as the Lord had commanded Moses. The Lord spoke to Moses, "Speak to Aaron, his sons, and all the Israelites, and tell them, this is the word that the Lord has commanded. Blood guilt will be accounted to any man from the house of Israel who slaughters an ox or a lamb or a goat inside the camp or outside the camp, but has not brought it to the entrance of the meeting tent to present it as an offering to the Lord before the tabernacle of the Lord. He has shed blood, so that man will be cut off from the midst of his people. This is so that the Israelites will bring their sacrifices that they are sacrificing in the open field to the Lord at the entrance of the meeting tent to the priest, and sacrifice them there as peace offering sacrifices to the Lord. The priest is to splash the blood on the altar of the Lord at the entrance of the meeting tent, and offer the fat up in smoke for a soothing aroma to the Lord. So they must no longer offer their sacrifices to the goat demons, acting like prostitutes by going after them. This is to be a perpetual statute for them throughout their generations. You are to say to them, any man from the house of Israel or from the foreigners who reside in their midst, who offers a burnt offering or a sacrifice, but does not bring it to the entrance of the meeting tent to offer it to the Lord, that person will be cut off from his people. Any man from the house of Israel or from the foreigners who reside in their midst who eats any blood, I will set my face against that person who eats the blood, and I will cut him off from the midst of his people. For the life of every living thing is in the blood, so I myself have assigned it to you on the altar to make atonement for your lives. For the blood makes atonement by means of life. Therefore, I have said to the Israelites, no person among you is to eat blood, and no resident foreigner who lives among you is to eat blood. Any man from the Israelites, or from the foreigners who resides in their midst, who hunts a wild animal or a bird that may be eaten, must pour out its blood and cover it with soil. For the life of all flesh is in its blood. So I have said to the Israelites, you must not eat the blood of any living thing, because the life of every living thing is in its blood. All who eat it will be cut off. Any person who eats an animal that has died of natural causes, or an animal torn by beasts, whether a native citizen or a foreigner, must wash his clothes, and bathe in water, and be unclean until evening. Then he becomes clean. But if he does not wash his clothes, and does not bathe his body, he will bear his punishment for iniquity. The Lord spoke to Moses, "Speak to the Israelites, and tell them, I am the Lord your God. You must not do as they do in the land of Egypt, where you have been living, and you must not do as they do in the land of Canaan, into which I am to bring you. You must not walk in their statutes. You must observe my regulations, and you must be sure to walk in my statutes. I am the Lord your God. So you must keep my statutes and my regulations. Anyone who does so will live by keeping them. I am the Lord. No man is to approach any close relative to have sexual intercourse with her. I am the Lord. You must not expose your father's nakedness by having sexual intercourse with your mother. She is your mother. You must not have intercourse with her. You must not have sexual intercourse with your father's wife. She is your father's nakedness. You must not have sexual intercourse with your sister, whether she is your father's daughter or your mother's daughter, whether she is born in the same household or born outside it. You must not have sexual intercourse with either of them. You must not expose the nakedness of your son's daughter or your daughter's daughter by having sexual intercourse with them, because they are your own nakedness. You must not have sexual intercourse with the daughter of your father's wife, born of your father. She is your sister. You must not have intercourse with her. You must not have sexual intercourse with your father's sister. She is your father's flesh. You must not have sexual intercourse with your mother's sister, because she is your mother's flesh. You must not expose the nakedness of your father's brother. You must not approach his wife to have sexual intercourse with her. She is your aunt. You must not have sexual intercourse with your daughter-in-law. She is your son's wife. You must not have intercourse with her. You must not have sexual intercourse with your brother's wife. She is your brother's nakedness. You must not have sexual intercourse with both a woman and her daughter. You must not take as wife either her son's daughter or her daughter's daughter to have intercourse with them. They are closely related to her. It is lewdness. You must not take a woman in marriage and then marry her sister as a rival wife while she is still alive to have sexual intercourse with her. You must not approach a woman in her menstrual impurity to have sexual intercourse with her. You must not have sexual intercourse with the wife of your fellow citizen to become unclean with her. You must not give any of your children as an offering to Moloch, so that you do not profane the name of your God. I am the Lord. You must not have sexual intercourse with a male, as one has sexual intercourse with a woman. It is a detestable act. You must not have sexual intercourse with any animal to become defiled with it. And a woman must not stand before an animal to have sexual intercourse with it. It is a perversion. Do not defile yourselves with any of these things, for the nations which I am about to drive out before you have been defiled with all these things. Therefore the land has become unclean, and I have brought the punishment for its iniquity upon it, so that the land has vomited out its inhabitants. You yourselves must obey my statutes and my regulations, and must not do any of these abominations, both the native citizen and the resident foreigner in your midst. For the people who were in the land before you have done all these abominations, and the land has become unclean. So do not make the land vomit you out, because you defile it, just as it has vomited out the nations that were before you. For if anyone does any of these abominations, the persons who do them will be cut off from the midst of their people. You must obey my charge to not practice any of the abominable statutes that have been done before you, so that you do not defile yourselves by them. I am the Lord your God. So, you have the Law of Atonement, where in the seventh day of the month, on the 10th day of, in the seventh month, on the 10th day of the month, you must humble yourselves and do no work of any kind. And the high priest is to go into the most holy place and purify the meeting tent and the altar, and make atonement for the priests and all the people. So, got the Law of Atonement there. And then, blood for atonement, in chapter 17, where God explains the rationale behind the blood here, that a creature's life is in its blood, and as such, life is being used as an atonement, as an analog for atonement for sin here. The Israelites aren't under this covenant, aren't supposed to eat any of the blood of a creature. And there's even provision for an animal that has died of natural causes, that is, or torn by beasts, which in that particular case, you wouldn't be able to drain the blood out. So, in that particular case, if a person eats of that animal, then they're unclean until evening. And then you have the laws on immoral relations, and the bookends here, I think, are particularly relevant. In 18:3, you must not do as they do in the land of Egypt, where you have been living, and you must not do as they do in the land of Canaan, into which I am about to bring you. You must not walk in their statutes. And at the end, 18:24, do not defile yourselves with any of these things, for the nations which I am about to drive out before you have been defiled with all of these things. So, yeah, all of the various bits on sexual intercourse here were practiced by the nations that the Israelites left and were going to. That is, sex with their mother, sex with their father, sex with their sister, sex with their aunt, sex with their mother-in-law, sex with their son's wife, sex with a girl and her daughter, sex with an animal, sex with other men, sex with everything under the sun, it would seem. And then in the middle of that, you have 18:21, you must not give any of your children as an offering to Molech, so that you do not profane the name of your God. I am the Lord. So, human sacrifice in the middle of there. Laws are given according to the culture that they're attempting to legislate. And this was a culture of heady sexual immorality. And I mean, even prior to this chapter, in chapter 17, you have the just a short quip, but you're supposed to bring your sacrifice in to the tent of meeting here and offer it there, and not offer it into the open field, as the Israelites have been. In 17 verse 7, they must no longer offer their sacrifices to the goat demons, acting like prostitutes by going after them. This is to be a perpetual statute for them throughout their generations. And the New Testament in various places makes this point, too, that there is no neutrality when it comes to worship. You're either worshiping God or you're worshiping demons. Yeah. Just carrying on then, I suppose. In Mark chapter 17, verse 24, through chapter 8, verse 10. After Jesus left there, he went to the region of Tyre. When he went into a house, he did not want anyone to know, but he was not able to escape notice. Instead, a woman whose young daughter had an unclean spirit immediately heard about him and came and fell at his feet. The woman was a Greek of Syrophoenician origin. She asked him to cast the demon out of her daughter. He said to her, "Let the children be satisfied first, for it is not right to take the children's bread and to throw it to the dogs." She answered, "Yes, Lord, but even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs." Then he said to her, "Because you said this, you may go. The demon has left your daughter." She went home and found the child lying on the bed and the demon gone. Then Jesus went out again from the region of Tyre and came through Sidon to the Sea of Galilee in the region of the Decapolis. They brought to him a deaf man who had difficulty speaking, and they asked him to place his hands on him. After Jesus took him aside privately, away from the crowd, he put his fingers in the man's ears, and after spitting, he touched his tongue. Then he looked up to heaven, and said with a sigh, "Ephatha," that is, "be opened." And immediately the man's ears were opened, his tongue loosened, and he spoke plainly. Jesus ordered them not to tell anything, but as much as he ordered them not to do this, they proclaimed it all the more. People were completely astounded and said, "He has done everything well. He even makes the deaf hear and the mute speak." In those days, there was another large crowd with nothing to eat. So Jesus called his disciples and said to them, "I have compassion on the crowd, because they have nothing. They have already been here with me 3 days, and they have nothing to eat. If I send them home hungry, they will faint on the way, and some of them have come from a great distance." His disciples answered him, "Where can someone get enough bread in this desolate place to satisfy these people?" He asked them, "How many loaves do you have?" They replied, 7. Then he directed the crowd to sit down on the ground. After he took the 7 loaves and gave thanks, he broke them and began giving them to the disciples to serve. So they served the crowd. They also had a few small fish. After giving thanks for these, he told them to serve these as well. Everyone ate and was satisfied, and they picked up the broken pieces left over, 7 baskets full. There were about 4,000 who ate. Then he dismissed them. Immediately he got into a boat with his disciples and went to the district of Dalmanatha. Yeah, so you have in Mark 7:24 through 7:30, Jesus interacting with this Syrophoenician woman that is a Greek, that is not a Jew. And this Greek woman wanted Jesus to heal her daughter who had a demon in her. But Jesus replied to her, he said, "Let the children be satisfied first, for it is not right to take the children's bread and to throw it to the dogs." That is, that Jesus came first for the Jews and not for the ministry was first to the Jews and then subsequently to the Gentiles. But she answered, "Yes, Lord, but even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs." So her faith, essentially, was what was part of what resulted in her daughter's healing. Obviously, the miraculous work of Jesus being the other part. But yeah, this isn't some insult to the woman here, saying that she's a dog, or like even the English, or like the derogatory English words that we use. This is more similar to like the English word for puppy. So I think we have to be careful not to read like our cultural understanding into the words that are being spoken and try to understand them in the culture that they were being said in. Because she agrees to this. That is, "Yes, Lord, but even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs." It's not as though she was insulted by this. Thus, one would think that it wasn't an insult. So, yeah, and then you have him healing a deaf and mute man, and then feeding again the 4,000, which I don't know. It's kind of astounding to me, the disciples' reaction to this in 8:4, because this is after the feeding of I don't know, the 5,000, 3,000, one of those thousands. His disciples answered him after he says, "I have compassion on the crowd," in 8:2, "because they have already been here with me 3 days, and they have nothing to eat. If I send them home hungry, they will faint on the way, and some of them have come from a very great distance." His disciples answered him, "Where can someone get enough bread in this desolate place, to satisfy these people?" I mean, they were witness to the miracles before, so just astounding our lack of faith sometimes. And finally, carrying on, Psalm 41, verses 1 through 13. "How blessed is the one who treats the poor properly. When trouble comes, the Lord delivers him. May the Lord protect him and save his life. May he be blessed in the land. Do not turn him over to his enemies. The Lord supports him on his sickbed. You completely heal him from his illness. As for me, I said, 'O Lord, have mercy on me. Heal me, for I have sinned against you.' My enemies ask this cruel question about me. When will he finally die and be forgotten? When someone comes to visit, he pretends to be friendly. He thinks of ways to defame me, and when he leaves, he slanders me. All who hate me whisper insults about me one to one another. They plan ways to harm me. They say an awful disease overwhelms him, and now that he is bedridden, he will never recover. Even my close friends, whom I trusted, he who shared meals with me, has turned against me. As for you, O Lord, have mercy on me and raise me up, so I can pay them back. By this I know that you are pleased with me, for my enemy does not triumph over me. As for you, you uphold me because of my integrity. You allow me perpetual access to your presence. The Lord God of Israel deserves praise in the future and forevermore. We agree? We agree. And finally, Proverbs 10, verses 15 and 16. The wealth of a rich person is like a fortified city, but the poor are brought to ruin by their poverty. The reward which the righteous receive is life. The recompense which the wicked receive is judgment. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me today. Hope you have a Merry Christmas.